You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
And just like that, we're off and running. I have no idea where this is going to go. Welcome to a third year bonus. This is Ryan Singer. This is the podcast, Me and Paranormal You. This is a solo episode. I've been so all over the place these last few weeks. This always happens to me when I get closer to a relocation event or a big travel event. I just kind of, my organization in certain areas fades when my organization in other areas escalate. I guess I only have so much bandwidth. That's the word we use nowadays, right? I only have so much bandwidth for organizing. I only have so much bandwidth for organizing. It doesn't sound. You sound a lot less stupid if you say a word wrong, or if you say a word incorrectly, but you're using a funny voice. Organizing. I have been spending so much time organizing. I thought you might be perturbed about all of my organizing. Do you see what I'm saying there? Okay, so anyway, we're back. We're back from that respite. A respite of what? A respite of sanity. Okay, so I'm gonna get on track here because I don't need Nigel chiming in over here. I'm almost finished with the Rick Rubin, The Creative Act, A Way of Being audiobook. Oh man, I'm really enjoying it. There's lots of things that resonate with me that are, there's things that are new to me. There are things that are reinforcing things I've already been living my life doing, or when I approach the way I approach my life in general, and specifically the act of creation. And maybe we can talk about that just for a second, because I think I mentioned last week, and don't send the muse to voicemail. And please don't. Please never send the muse to voicemail. Although I guess sometimes, if something really important is happening in your life, you might be tempted to send the muse to voicemail. You do have to prioritize your mental health and your physical health above, communing with the muse or the muses, for that matter. When organizing your daily life or your creative schedule. Now, I got to tell you this: the art is a portal, right? Art is a portal to the unseen. And what is the unseen? The unseen is in your mind. It's your creation. It is your imagination. It is the consciousness that binds all things: living, past, present, dead, after form, pre-form, and form, right? We are all here right now in this moment, even though this moment is different than the moment you are hearing it. You are hearing my now moment and your now moment, and those now moments are not the same. Isn't that wild? But they are the same, because time isn't linear. We are sharing this moment in time. I am reaching to you from the past. I am reaching to my future. Your present, and I sense you there, and I'm glad you're there. And also, I forgot to do this bit of housekeeping right at the beginning because I wasn't organizing properly. Spreaker, the platform on which this podcast is distributed, has changed some things in the way they're doing things. They are apparently they are requiring 5 mid-roll breaks, which are advertising breaks. When you do, maybe just over an hour or right around an hour. I don't like that. I don't enjoy that at all. So this is a call to go sign up over on the Patreon page. Again, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. And until I figure out what's going to be going on over there, I am going to be definitely posting more, or I'm definitely going to be opening up, to the very least, more of these episodes that will be ad-free over on Patreon to like the $1 level for sure. And I mean, the $3 level, you've got every episode no matter what. So I'm thinking about, at least 2 episodes, at least every other week, I'm going free for the $1 mode until I figure this out. Because I couldn't imagine listening to 5 commercial breaks personally for when trying to enjoy a podcast. That's not my vibe. That's not my vibe, but you can fast forward them. Don't forget that. You can hit the little fast forward button. So I'm trying to figure all that. This is a change that was unbeknownst to me. I was on the back end looking at some things, and all of my episodes said they were non-compliant all of a sudden with the ad policy for Spreaker Prime, which I am a Prime member. So that shocked me because I specifically build in ad breaks so they don't just show up in the middle of nowhere now, in the middle of a sentence. Although some of them from the past probably do. And every once in a while, an episode will go much longer than I thought it did. And so then, I'll have to throw in another commercial break, even though I didn't announce a commercial break was coming. So apologies for that. But, we're just doing the best we can over here. Okay, so just a reminder, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. You can be a free patron as well. Free patrons do get ad-free episodes at least once a month and other stuff over there as well. So I just wanted to put that back out there. We hit the century mark on patrons. I don't know if I've ever had 100 patrons on this. I've had that Patreon for this podcast for years. I don't know if I've ever had 100 patrons. So that's cool. That's cool. And this is when I find out my mom just has 774 Patreon accounts to give me $74 every month. Love you, Mom. Thank you for that. I am mere days away from a journey across the country. I'm very excited about that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going to be happening. Patrons will know that that Fitz has been giving me fits. Fitz, Friends in the Sky, the Investigation of Mutilation Ranch documentary, which I, brazenly was saying, wow, I haven't used that word in a while. Brazenly, I was saying I was finished editing that, other than just adding the music to it when it was finished. And sure enough, what happens? Footage disappears. Now I have to uninstall, I have to reinstall an older version of the software. And eventually, after trying about 3 different older versions, I go back far enough to find one that works where I can relink footage because, in their infinite wisdom, Adobe has decided to make certain video files incompatible with their software, which you would think that you would only make more video files compatible. You wouldn't be losing video files. You think you would only be adding and gaining more video files. It's maddening and it is silly and it makes you want to throw your computer out the window when you have no idea what's happening. There's a ghost in the machine, Dan Lindholm will tell me, and he'll tell you. And there are other things happening today on the edit of this thing, which was finished. And now things are disappearing, things are merging, things are showing up in different spots. These are glitches, these are technical things. But I just really don't know why they happen, and it's magical, it's mysterious, and it's maddening. It's the magical, mysterious, maddening tour. It's like the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour. It's the magical, maddening tour over here. I'd like to play a show for you tonight. For the benefit of Mr. Kite, I'd like to edit a documentary for you tonight. So for the benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show tonight on trampolines. So I got to listen to that album. Are you a fan of the Beatles? If you listen to Sgt. Pepper, if you listen to Rubber Soul, if you listen to the Magical Mystery Tour, you understand that there's a whimsicalness and there's a little bit of a silliness and there's a playfulness and a magic in the music. and it transports you to a different world. And that is why Pet Sounds is one of the greatest albums of all time, because it was inspired by Brian Wilson listening to Rubber Soul. And then the Beatles listened to Pet Sounds, and then they make Sgt. Pepper's. And so, which is something Rick Rubin talks about in the audiobook, The Creative Act. Now, this is something I already knew because I'm a huge Brian Wilson fan, and I love Smile, probably my favorite album of all time. It is a complete work. It is a masterpiece. There are callbacks in songs to previous songs. It is a transportation of mind, heart, and soul to a different realm. And I love it dearly. I love it desperately. And maybe I'll take a walk tomorrow in the sun or the rain. I don't care. And I will listen to that album from beginning to end. God Only Knows is one of the best songs in the history of time, and it's on that album. Good Vibrations is on that album. Wait, is God Only Knows on that album? It's good. Yeah, it is. And God, the lure, it's not a fishing device, the lore of that album and the creation of that album. There is, I don't know if we can characterize it as a complete misconception that Brian Wilson had such a great work of genius trying to birth itself from his creative consciousness that it broke him and caused a mental breakdown. That's one of the old kind of stories about Smile and Smiley Smile, which I think originally was going to be called. Now, I wouldn't go as far to say that that a creative work or a creation of art would ever single-handedly drive a person crazy or break a person's mind. I don't think that now listen, a person's desire to create such a thing and a person's obsession with crafting art or a piece, specifically an album or whatever, a book, a novel, a film, a set, a new, an album. If you're a comedian, now that could drive a person. That could drive a person mad. And there are times whenever I'm getting ready to record something like a big thing, like a new album or a special or something, I will like to be on the road for, 2.5 months straight, because I feel like I've become slightly feral, to say the least. And I do feel a little bit, I feel like a little detached from the physical world, and I've become such a transient, and I'm occupying the liminal space on the regular basis and for a prolonged period of time, which allows you only to rely on the only solid thing you have, and that is the craft of the art of which you're creating. That's the only thing that can really keep you, and also friendships and relationships out on the road. But it's something that really anchors you, and to a certain degree. And if that's the most material anchor you have, chances are you're kind of living in the ethereal realm, and it's ethereal realm, I think is what I meant to say there. And for me specifically, I have a real chance to tap into the flow state and really unlock some things and tap into some things, because I love being in a frenzied state of creation. Maybe that's why I like being sped up, trying to recreate that. That's why I get jacked up on sugar, on ice cream. That's why I used to do drugs that would speed me up, because I don't know, trying to recreate the frenzy of artistic inspiration. Is there anything better? I think I better take a break here for commercials, because I have no idea how many I'm going to have to jam in here. So let's do a quick spot here. And I promise I will do is, I think if I can, I'm just going to do I'll just do like a single ad for each one of these. So it should be quite fast getting back to the program. Hey, and we're back. I like how I call it a program, as if there's something programmed, as if there's an actual program. I have a concept of a program. Anyway, okay, there's a little topical humor for you. if you've been paying attention in the last 24 hours. So there's a little topical joke there for you. I hope you enjoyed it. That's about as topical as I'm going to get. Now, I don't really enjoy the topical creation of comedy in my own act, specifically in my stage performances, because I when I craft a joke, I want to write a joke that I can use for years if I feel like it. Topical humor sometimes can be very funny, but it's not my. I don't enjoy writing it necessarily. Although every once in a while, there's no absolutes, of course, but I like to build an act, jokes that will potentially last a lifetime, and topical jokes don't do that. I mean, there's so many topical jokes that are out there constantly on the internet, and I'm not there. I'm not on the internet consuming that stuff, and for a reason. I'm not jaded about comedy. I just understand after 22 years of hanging out in comedy clubs and watching probably more shows than any, and more live shows than any, and listening to more audio than any human being ever probably should of one of one thing in their life. I have a very refined palate when it comes to stand-up comedy. So, and topical jokes, with the exception of some John Oliver. I mean, he can hit it, and his writing staff does a really great job. And the Jon Stewart Daily Show Daves, those were some pretty great topical things as far as jokes and comedy goes. Anyway, let's get back to the program. I was talking about the creation of art and the invisible and the unseen, and I want to further elaborate on that a little bit because I don't think I really got into it as much as I wanted to last week on Don't Send the Muse to Voicemail. In the realm of paranormal investigation and, high strangeness research, I think it is important to show uniqueness of point of view. And I think, we're getting there. And I think the paranormal world has been pretty shut off and had a pretty dominant POV for a long time due to the nature of programming that people see on television. And it's there's a one-way ticket to a paranormal investigation. And it's just so ridiculous, right? And, shows like Hellier and others and Liminal have shown us there's other ways to do things. And that's always been more appealing to me, is a more genuine representation of what it means to investigate and research the paranormal. Because a lot of it is just sitting alone reading or going down rabbit holes, researching, jumping from article to article to PDF to book, etc. Tying in multiple sources for me is a very thrilling aspect of the paranormal research and investigation. The investigation is very active, and the research also is active, and yet at the same time, both of them can be quite passive as well. Sometimes they will just appear for you. You will be reading something with not the intent of discovering a new thread that can be pulled that will offer insight, yet there it appears. I will think of an example at some point during this conversation, and I will give it to you. I need to pause real quick here. I'm going to be right back because I have to move some music around. And you might be asking yourself, what do you mean you had to move some music around? Well, I have music set up for ad breaks, but like I said, there's a whole new system in place. So anyway, let's get back to what I was talking about. When it comes to uniqueness of point of view and approaching the paranormal as if it's an art form, and more specifically, research and investigation. Approaching these things as if they are an art form when we do them, I think is a valuable lens to view this, this work, because I've always envisioned myself, and I have failed time and time again, every single time. When it comes to creating, whether it's the bridge, which I'm still working on, and and whether it's Fitz, the Investigation Mutilation Ranch, or the Untitled Florida documentary, I look at it as if I'm trying to make a beautiful film or beautiful television, not something that is just content consumption, whiz bang pop, Monster Energy drink can, action, bang bang, bow, or bingo bango bow go. I want to make something that's beautiful. I want to make something that is, I don't know, that can be appreciated for not having to be over the top. It can be subtle, but it can also be informative. It can be interesting. It can be heartfelt. It can have heart and soul to it. That's what I'm aiming to make, and hopefully we fail constantly because we set our sights so high that it would be impossible to think that we could actually achieve them. Yet we become delusional in the rapture of creation, and we believe that we can. And then when it's over, we understand that, sure, maybe we have failed, but at the same time, we have probably achieved a height much higher than if we would have set our sights lower and then just reached that goal. It would be lower than falling short of something much, much higher. I think that makes sense. And I want that for myself. I want that for you in everything that you do, everything that you undertake or you dive into, because I think it's a life well lived when we can imbue passion into our pursuits. And I think part of that has to do with finding your joy stations. And hey, listen, not all of us get to turn our joy stations into our workstations overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. I have been working at all of this for decades, for 2 decades plus now. So this is something that is, sacrifice and hard work and commitment comes to that. So mostly commitment and work, more so than sacrifice, I suppose. I mean, I guess it's kind of sexy to say, oh, there's so much I've sacrificed for this. There's so much I've not allowed myself to do for the pursuit of this singular vision. That's not really how it happens for anybody. And so, yeah, we can kind of, I don't know. It would be nice to dispel that myth, because I think it would go a long way in alleviating some of the tortured artist identity that so many of us not only embrace, but in many ways seek out. And I don't think it's important. So I don't think you need to be some tortured artist to be a brilliant paranormal researcher or investigator or writer. I think there's great examples of people who have taken their own path and have created their own thing and have not worried about joining the system and, getting swallowed up by the system and climbing that ladder to be successful, or, but what do you want? Do you want commercial success, or do you want to be an artist? Or do you want to be, are you the best that you can be? I've always looked at it as I want to be the best version of myself that I can be in whatever it is that I'm doing. So, and it's always been much more important to me to respect myself in the craft of something than to earn, the commercial success that would afford me, luxuries, etc. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't accept luxuries, because I got to tell you, I'm not a car guy, but this 2012 Subaru Forester is treating me right so far. I got to tell you, having a panoramic moonroof, that's just fun to say. Let's say that one more time. Having a panoramic moonroof, I got to tell you, I might go drive after this and just look at the stars in my panoramic moonroof if I can get my organization under control. Okay, panoramic moonroof. Okay, I had to say it again. You get it. Sometimes you just have to get it because it tickles. It like you got a scratch and itch in your brain, and you can only do it by saying panoramic moonroof. That's a lot of fun syllables that aren't necessarily easy to put together, but are fulfilling to do so. So yeah, I think when it comes to, I want to explain this a little bit, at least from my own brain. And this isn't because I'm like trying to like lay it all out for you. It's because I'm trying to understand it myself, and I'm trying to understand how I think about it. And by talking out loud into this microphone, it's helping me understand my own thing here. If that makes sense to you. Approaching the paranormal with an artistic vision, for me, means putting aside expectations and rules and regulations, for lack of a better phrase. So you have to remove expectations. I have to remove expectations. My own expectations, other people's expectations, my expectations of other people's expectations, etc. And also the rules and the regulations, which I guess can kind of fall under expectations, society's expectations or the audience's expectations, etc., etc., etc. What is it that I'm trying to convey to people? And for me, mostly at the heart of most things, at least projects that I'm in control of creatively, is the connectedness between you, me, we, all. That is, to me, at the heart of all the things I'm trying to do. And now, so every decision I make from there is informed by that goal. How do I have a through line, or how do I connect all of this material in a way that might not seem that it's initially connected, to show that even though we don't necessarily think we're all connected, we are connected, right? So it's kind of onomatopoeic, even though I love using that word, quote unquote, incorrectly. Okay, I guess it's time for another commercial break because the music is here. And like I said, this is the new format. We got to do more of these mid-roll breaks. So we're going to be right back. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month, never a commercial in your life on this program. At least the ones that are that I've put up on the Patreon. And $1 a month, at least probably 2 a month. And free, you get the free patrons, you'll get 1 a month. Just a reminder. Oh, and I put some videos up over there. Oh, I got to tell you about this. I already kind of talked about it. Third time's a charm. We'll see what happens, but we're going to be right back. And I have returned, and so have you, from my past, from your present, into our combined futures. Welcome back to Me and Paranormal You. This is Ryan Singer. We're talking about approaching the paranormal with an artistic lens, or with an artistic vision of how we want to investigate and how we want to conduct our research, and therefore share our findings, if in fact that is something we aspire to do. You don't need to share your work. That's not necessary. It can be enough to quell the curiosity of your singular individuality and singular mind. That can be enough of a reason to do the work, whatever it is. Just simply to try to better understand the unknown, and therefore quite possibly gain some insight and better understand yourself. Excuse me, I got a little bit of carbonation in my throat there. So that's actually a really fun component of all this. The more we try to figure out the great unknowable, the less we seem to know, right? Yet somehow, if we pause and take inventory, which I don't do a bunch because I'm always moving forward, but if I take inventory and allow myself to pull off the road of life for a moment and the pursuit of experience, and, gather my thoughts and collect the information that has been accumulated along the way, trying to understand the unseen, the strange, and the unexplainable. I notice that these collective pieces of information can build a reflective mirror, and I can start to potentially understand myself a little bit better if I'm lucky. And if, I'm not over here acting like I understand who I am in some kind of enlightened way. That's, the universe knows I've got a long way to go and a lot of work to do for that. And it's exciting to think about. It's exciting to think about the breakthroughs that can come from doing so. But if we, like I said, if we're on that little, that rest area of life's highway, and, we just take a moment to stare into the, slightly cracked reflection of this mirror of, combined experiences. I think what we can find is, or at least what I know I have found, is I understand certain things of myself. I understand that I can be very afraid. I can be, fearful of the unknown and the unexplainable. I can also set aside preconceived notions of what I believe something is or what something should be. And I can understand that there's a humility in admitting that, in fact, I know nothing. And I am starting from scratch and writing a brand new book about something that I thought I already knew, that I'd already sent off the book to the publisher. And now here we are. Scrap that book, burn that book, because I need to write a whole new book because I didn't understand really what I was talking about. But more so than something like that, I think what we can do is we can understand, a little bit about, our desires and our interests. What is at the heart of the things that are driving us. And when we allow ourselves to look through this, this fractured reflection, this fractured reflection is here. You are going to look at the fractured reflection. It actually sounds like I'm doing, it's just a guy who doesn't know what the word is. I'm not trying to do, an Asian voice there, by the way. So it may have sounded like that. So apologies if that's what you thought was happening. That's not what I was doing. I combined those two words. I smashed them. I smashed, fractured and reflection into, the word we were hearing. So anyway, if we look at the fractured reflection, we can see things about ourselves that maybe surprise us. Maybe we can find ourselves to be a little more courageous than we gave ourselves credit for. Have you ever had a moment like that doing paranormal investigation? I have. I'll never forget this one. This was the first time I ever investigated with Karen Rontowski. We were down in San Diego at an old playhouse, and I wish I could remember the name of this place, and I cannot. Anyway, there was a group of us. I didn't know anyone except Karen. She brought me along for the investigation. I forget what night of the week. It was maybe a Friday night, late night or something, or Thursday. It's not important. Really, really cool spot. Really cool place. And nothing super wild or crazy happened, as is often the case. But there is one section. There's I guess it's the props area, if I remember correctly. I can see it. I can see it even though it was very, very dark. I can see it in my mind's eye, even though there was nothing to see because it was so dark. But you know what I mean. The location, the space. It's almost like you're in an old school library. When there's a chase scene in a library and you see the person hiding and they're running from row to row to row, and the camera is panning from like left to right, and you see like aisle of books, whole like little walkway, aisle of books, walkway, aisle of books, right? That's what this was like. But Wow, excuse me, I should probably edit that out, but I'm not going to because I like you to get the raw, uncensored version of the Mindcast. But that's what this was like, but props. So it was like the prop storage area where it had rows of shelves that you could get to from either side. And so it was like that, but it was just like all, costume props, etc., maybe lighting gear, stuff like that. And or other various knickknacks. And it was incredibly, incredibly dark in this section of the theater. And there was something heavy, there was something thick that seemed to be residing from down these dark, unlit hallways of, the storage area. And someone said, we should go over there. And I said, I'll go. And I almost shocked myself because I wasn't thinking like, oh yeah, I should go. It just kind of happened. And no one else really wanted to go. And then this woman decided she would go. And as we were walking there, we got about halfway down this aisle. She goes, I'm sorry, I have to turn on the flashlight. I cannot be here. And it's like, this is too much. I have to illuminate. And she said, is that okay? And I go, of course it's okay. You need to be comfortable, right? I think we all do. And so she turned the flashlight on. And it didn't occur to me to turn the flashlight on. And if you know me, you know I'm kind of a scaredy cat. I don't watch scary movies because I don't want to be scared. Because I don't like being scared. I'm not a fright chaser. I'm not a scream chaser, I don't enjoy being terrified. So I learned something about myself on that very first investigation with Karen. Where I was just like, I will go to the dark place. Now, there have been times at Post Town with Eric Connor where I have not been all about doing a solo session for his live stream. That's a whole nother thing. I have done solo at Pierpont Inn for the release of A Free Love, the album that came out, and God, was that 6 years ago? There's no way that was 6 years ago. Was it 2018? There's no way. I refuse to accept that, but it's true. And so Karen popped over for a little bit, but other than that, it was just me. And, well, my buddy Darcy was there on the live stream with me as well. But nothing really super scary happened there. And there was no lore of, nasty spirits or entities at that particular location, the Pierpont Inn, up in Ventura, California. God, what a cool little area. I love that whole Santa Barbara. I mean, the Central Coast area of California is just bonkers. And that's why it costs, $700 million to live there, because it's beautiful. So yeah, we can learn things about ourselves. We can learn that we will, go into the woods looking for Bigfoot. We will have the absolute life scared out of us on such an event. And then for, 5 years, we'll have to have a therapist. And eventually, a couple years after the event, even though there's no way in hell I ever thought I would go back to that place, you start going back, and you go back alone, and you stay there by yourself. The homeowners will still be there, and then next thing you know, you're going back 3 times in 1 year on week-long expeditions and confronting those fears, the things that make us so uncomfortable, and the things that's probably some of the most scared I've been in my life on our May trip. And we were there in May. Or was it the January trip? Actually, I think it may have been the January trip, not the May trip. I know I said it may have been. Just happened to be the same word, different meaning. We went outside pretty late. It was the very last night after hearing banging on the house. And we went out, lights out. right by the Sugar Shack, maybe 10, 15 feet away from where the thing was that screamed at me in 2019. And we all stood back to back, and I was facing kind of that general direction, holding Eric's gateway device. So holding this device that I believe is communicating messages from interdimensional beings, spirits, ghosts, creatures, whatever, right? So speaking backwards, it's got a reverb. It's very, I'm doing an absolute awful impersonation of the gateway device. It sounded 0% like the gateway device, my impersonation just now. And so that was terrifying. That was terrifying for me in the moment. And when that documentary eventually finds the light of day, you'll be able to see my face. So you'll be able to hear my voice when someone's like, "We got to go outside," and I'm just like, "No, we don't." I'm like, "No, we do not have to go outside," and yet we go outside. These are the things we learn about ourselves during paranormal investigations, or these journeys and these research trips into the unknown. And this is going to be hopefully the last commercial break. We're going to be right back. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. Go sign up. Be a free patron. We'd love to have you over there. And then you can get on the Discord as well. Let's see if that thing ever livens up. Okay, I'm back. And wait, is music going to come on again here? It probably is going to, but don't worry about it. It doesn't mean another commercial is coming this second. So what we're talking about is the exploration of self. When, we dive deep into the unknown and into the paranormal and into this high strangeness, basically, what are we truly trying to learn about ourselves is ultimately the question. At least in my opinion, that's what it seems to come down to. It's, truly, it's the only thing we can really learn. And it's only in better understanding ourselves, or at least in those moments. That's not to say that we will understand ourselves from a moment in time and that same lesson or piece of information will apply forever. Because, we change and things change us and we change things. And that's just the nature of the way things are. Now, we are trying to understand ourselves, right? Even if that's not the goal. Because when I go to Florida, I'm not trying to learn about Ryan. I'm trying to learn about what's happening. What is the phenomenon that is occurring down there in various different forms? And what are these special abilities and, that they have? And, and how do we, in fact, do we all have those that are unlockable? Or are they just not unlockable all the way for some of us? For whatever reason. Because different strokes for different folks, right? It takes a village, as they say. So I'm not going down there with the mission to be like, this is, I don't think any of us are really, truly doing that, where we approach everything in life like, what can I learn about myself by learning this other thing or trying to understand this other thing? It is just by the sheer nature of the existence of the connected consciousness that regardless of what we're learning about, we are in some way gleaming some information about ourselves in the process. And one is a reflection of the other. And our experience is so internal, right, in many aspects. Although we have external experiences that are shared with other people and with the environment around us, ultimately it is anchored on the internal side of things. This is what, the idealist will talk about in some ways, and if you're a hardcore idealist, and I'm bastardizing this, many 1,000 apologies to you, but the anchor is inside. The anchor is, and it's inside of a place that you can't put your finger on because it's immaterial. It is consciousness. It is the invisible fabric of reality. And that is where our anchor and that is where our experience comes from. And this is why there's a whole scientific field of psychology, right? And, the ego, the id, the superego, the idea of self, self-awareness, sentience, being self-conscious, all these things, right? Well, I truly do believe that there is the anchor on the internal. The internal anchor is where the experience resonates most deep. That is why an experience that I have in the external world in May of 2019 that is so frightening in a physical, external way resonates so deeply and reverberates, multidimensionally through my consciousness and through my body, that it now affects my physical behavior and other areas of my life. Not being able to sleep with my lights off for nearly a year and a half. I still have not camped in my tent, which I just opened up on my driveway about a week and a half ago to make sure it still works and didn't have holes in it. Still have not used that tent in 5 years. I had to order a new sleeping bag because I don't have one. That's how long it's been since I've camped. I have not camped in over 5 years. Now, I've slept in a cabin at a campground, but although we didn't really sleep, that's when the 2 nights I spent in LSD cabin with Eric on our last trip to Florida. And I think I talked about that after you can go back and I think there's actually an episode called LSD Cabin. Anyway, so that's what I'm talking about when it's like resonating interdimensionally through our consciousness. And that's why the anchor is internal, because it is something that, it's so multi-layered and it's so expansive that it's like House of Leaves. If you've ever read that book, and it looks like a house on the outside, and then you go inside and you open up one of the closet doors, and then like the endless hallway expands, and it doesn't abide by the rules of physics of the 3D world, right? So our experience and everything is internal. It's from this internal anchor. So when we have these paranormal experiences, when we seek to understand the physical phenomena in the material world around us, ultimately, what are we doing? We are collecting information for that internal control center to better put the puzzle pieces together of a multidimensional, immaterial existence. We are collecting from above for below, right? Does this make sense to you? Because I feel like I'm on one right now. So I do feel like this resonates with my internal anchor in my internal control center. My ICC, my internal control center, is vibrating at a resonance of understanding. So these are the things we're doing. And these are the things I'm doing. And now, when you bring it all back, right? You bring it all back to this artistic vision. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, by the way. Just because I like to do something a certain way, whoa, no way does that mean. If you knew how I ate my pint of ice cream, you might be like, I would never eat a pint of ice cream like that, all in one sitting. And you set a stopwatch to see how fast you can do it. Is that are you like me? No, I don't do that. I'm not a maniac. What I will do is I will let it sit on the table for a while, because I like to slurp up what I call the outer rim, right? I don't want to have to get in there. I don't want to have to do hard dig. I don't want to have to do an archaeological dig just to get to my ice cream. So I let it sit out, maybe 15 minutes, right? I forget about it almost. And then there is the outer rim, which is kind of soupy. And then you just go around, you slurp up the outer rim. And now it almost looks like you've got a tennis ball in a canister, right? That's when you know it's good. That's when you know the getting is good. And now you don't have to do a full-on archaeological dig to get to the rest of the cream. That's how I like to do it. That doesn't mean you have to do it like that. So, the artistic vision. Am I saying I'm an artist when I eat my pints? Yes, of course I am. I'm not saying you have to do it that way. What's your art when it comes to eating a pint, throwing down some cream? I'd love to hear about it. The point is, I think, for me, when I lean into the idea of the artistic vision of the paranormal research and investigation, for me, it really kicks things up a notch when it comes to the resonance of my internal anchor. I don't want to say that there's profundity to it. I don't want to make this bigger than it is. Sometimes it's me and some buddies just laughing our ass off the whole time, right? And then something crazy happens and it resonates internal because there's an external experience that, externally it's wild as well. Those moments are fleeting, as anyone who's been on an investigation knows. Those moments are so fleeting. You could spend 3 hours, then you get 2 seconds of something that's wild and crazy, and it just blows your mind, and it's over. And then it's just back to nothing for another 2 hours. That's just how it goes out there, or in there, or wherever you are. You happen to be traipsing around with your devices and with your senses. Oops, sorry about that. But internally, I still remember some of the noises in that bad teacher hallway of Post Town from the last 3 or 4 trips I've been there with my buddy Eric. I still can see the lights in my mind's eye of the REM pods responding to me directly in Florida when asking questions to what I perceived or thought to be was the portal's intelligence, right? And getting answers, seemingly getting answers by setting up a framework of response. Now, this resonates with me so deeply on an internal, at my internal control center, or my internal anchor, whatever we want. I'm sure there's a better phrase for it that we'll discover at some point, but first thought, best thought, so maybe not. So, because I feel it in my bones right now. It gets me excited. And I'm going to be back there in like a month. I'm just so juiced up about it, right? But there's other things on the horizon first that have also resonated with my internal anchor. And they've taught me about myself. What am I willing to believe in? I'm now like all in on the dog man. Who would have thought I'd be such a guy? I never would have thought that. But what does that show me about who I am? That means I'm willing to flip-flop, right? Which is a great thing because I'm willing to take in new information and change my mind, which hopefully is a sign of intelligence. Although some people would think that the more I believe and the more phenomena of the paranormal world, maybe the less smart I'm becoming. But hey, that tells them more about themselves than it does about me. Doesn't it? Much in the same way, it would tell me more about me than another person if I thought they were an idiot for doing something or stupid for being such a way. That tells me a lot more about me than it does that other person. Why do I need another person to believe in the paranormal? So I don't feel like they judge me because there's strength in numbers, because there's comfort and community. Certainly, those are reasons. What does it teach us about ourselves? The pursuit of the paranormal is, or has been, marginalized and considered fluffy. Maybe it's been considered unimportant work. Maybe it's been considered ridiculous, foolish. That of people who have nothing better to do or worry about with their time. And I would argue that it's in fact not those things. It is the pursuit of the unknown, and it is a quest for understanding the nature of what it means to exist. And on top of that, what is that nature? What is the truth about reality? And is it quite possible, in fact, that multiple truths can exist simultaneously? And this is an idea I'm having just in the moment, so bear with me. But what if there are multiple ways to be right and multiple ways to be wrong about everything? So you could be right when you say there are 100% ghosts exist, and you could also be right when you say there's no such thing as ghosts. How could those things be simultaneously correct at the same time? How could we hold these two opposites as true together? I don't have the answer for that. But what if that, in fact, was the nature of the reality of these things? How can UFOs be material and immaterial? How can all of these professors and scientists who devote years of their life come out on the other side of it being like, this is an immaterial phenomena? The nature of the UFO phenomena is immaterial. Yet we see UFOs flying around in the sky. How can that be the case? And how can a collective, how can a community of, or a population of Earth ever wrap their brain around that, let alone the fact that aliens and UFOs are here, which people are starting to wrap their brains around now. I have this conversation a lot with people about aliens and UFOs. And oftentimes people will say, well, it's ignorance is bliss. I've got enough things in my life to worry about. I can't worry about this. And I understand that. So trying to explain to people my limited understanding of what it even means when people are saying that the phenomena is an immaterial phenomena, and trying to understand, trying to show some empathy and understand why the national security argument for the gatekeepers exists, instead of just railing against it blindly and madly like I want to do and have done on numerous occasions. If we don't understand, if the people who have the information don't understand what the information means, how are they supposed to explain it to everybody who doesn't have the information or have access to the information? So that's the rub. And, is it the burden of authority to keep information that is troubling and troubling only because it's unknowable, not necessarily scary, but the unknowable is scary to so many of us. And maybe that's why we scare ourselves, because we just don't really know ourselves yet. And maybe that's the rub, that we look into the unknown because in our heart of hearts, we understand that we truly don't understand our own nature quite yet. We don't truly understand who we are, where we come from, and all that we are capable of. And we manifest like screaming children with our bombs and our property lines and our social media diatribes, because we don't know how to fully communicate with our truest self, and therefore with each other. Some people seem to have figured it out, and I think these are the enlightened ones. Yeah. Okay. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. You can listen to all these without commercials. I'll be back in beautiful Los Angeles very, very soon. I hope to see you at a comedy show out there if you're on the west side, if you're on the west coast. And I'm going to Colorado, to the location, hopefully very soon as well. I'll keep you posted, and also I'll be back in Florida very soon. Lots going on. A lot going on. I love you. I hope you love yourself. Hope you're taking care of yourself. We've got a lot going on these next couple months. Take care of yourself, and take care of yourself. I'm hoping that's my wish for you. And in the meantime, I hope to see you at a comedy show maybe somewhere. But if not, I'll just see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.